In the restless, slaughter-filled barrens of the night, the laws of survival are often equated with the confrontation of power, the gamble of speed, and fierce tearing. Yet, above the cold, clear night sky, a certain creature composes an acoustic miracle of life-dissolving air friction in the lightest, gentlest posture. Tonight, accompanied by the gently flickering hearth and this story you need not effortfully remember, let us step into his true life. This barn owl stands quietly upon a weathered, ancient beam of an abandoned manor, his feathers, as soft as silk and laced with delicate mottling, appearing boundlessly serene beneath the faint moonlight. The outside world is accustomed to calling them monkey-faced owls, or phantom birds, in terrifying legends, but few truly understand that this seemingly mysterious and bizarre creature is actually a reclusive sage utilizing acoustic physics to the absolute limit. The flight path he charts is an absolute silence devoid of any air friction sound or tearing burst of wind, just like a silent breeze brushing over wild grass. Even the keenest nocturnal insects cannot detect his descent. To survive in a world without light, the barn owl made a series of astonishing, even poignant evolutionary compromises along its lengthy lineage. He surrendered the hard, waterproof feather coat of traditional birds and remodeled his plumage into an ultra-fragile, noise-canceling sponge that is easily drenched by rain, solely to barter for a single absolute silent glide across the night sky. This is no relaxed or elegant hunting cruise, but a hermit meditating lonely in the deep dark, constructing an invisible anechoic chamber within the shifting currents through a lifetime of restraint, endurance, and concentration. Now, please let your breath lengthen and slow down with the rhythmic, gentle microcurrent flows beside the barn owl, and immerse yourself in this midnight dream tenderly wrapped in silent feathers. When the last glint of faint autumn twilight vanishes completely from the desolate wastes, the chilly night wind, laden with withered grass debris, begins to unfold silently across the boundless earth. At this hour, when most living things attempt to shrink back into their burrows out of dread for the dark or collapse into desperate sleep, the barn owl's day commences in extreme quietude and alertness. He slowly turns his head from the ancient wooden window of the abandoned barn. Upon that perfectly heart-shaped facial disc, as delicate as a white porcelain plate, two eyes as black as ink betray a concentration he can never discard for life. To comprehend this focus, we must first uncover his strict physiological ledger that offers no retreat. This is the starting point of all his actions and the acoustic shackle binding his destiny. Unlike other birds of prey that rely on speed or strength to hunt in daylight, the barn owl's life belongs completely to the pitch black, and prey in the dark usually harbor a hypersensitive alertness to sound. If his feathers were as hard and elastic as an eagle's or a falcon's, the exact moment he flapped his wings, the air rushing across the feather margins would trigger violent turbulence and vortices, erupting into a tearing blast of wind enough to startle any creature. To survive in this corner devoid of light, the barn owl thoroughly remodeled his plumage across long ages on a microfluid dynamics level. If we magnify his feathers under a microscope, an awe-inspiring physical world reveals itself. The leading edge of his flight feathers bears a regularly arranged row of rigid comb-like serrations. These tiny teeth act like a fleet of delicate dinner knives, silently slicing and dismantling the oncoming mass of air into countless smooth linear airflows as he flaps. Immediately following this, a layer of ultrafine underdown, as delicate and soft as velvet coating his feather surfaces, acts like a thick sponge, perfectly absorbing and dissolving these shredded, faint aerial vibrations. Ultimately, when the current flows past the trailing edge of the feathers, a defensive line woven from countless soft, staggered, fringe-like margins, it transitions smoothly back into the air, leaving behind not a single noise-generating vortex. This ultimate sound-softening structure allows his core body heat and kinetic flight energy to strike a balance in the gentlest way on a microscale as he wanders the freezing night sky, unhurried and deliberate, fully complying with the natural laws of fluid dynamics. His entire life is spent within this silent greenhouse, built by hand from hundreds of millions of gentle feathers, demanding the utmost diligence to mend and nurse that vital coat which could fail at any moment due to mere dirt. However, the heaviest price the barn owl pays in its epic of life to sustain this ultimate silent glide lies hidden within its seemingly sturdy feathers, which actually offer zero resistance to moisture. To attain peak acoustic cancellation, the barn owl's plumage abandoned the uropygial gland owned by most birds during its evolution, meaning it cannot smear oils across its feather surfaces to gain flawless waterproofing like a duck or an eagle. His feathers are porous, loose, and hyperabsorbent, when a sudden midnight autumn rain descends without warning over the ancient woods, it marks a lethal catastrophe for the barn owl. The instant those crystalline, freezing raindrops make contact with his feathers, they do not beat up and roll off as they would on other birds, but rapidly infiltrate and saturate his thick underdown layer like a sponge soaking up water. Once waterlogged, the down collapses and mats together instantly, which not only strips him of that vital air-insulating greenhouse in a flash, but also causes his body weight to skyrocket, turning his wings as heavy as iron. At this juncture, with every labored flap of his wings in the storm, he emits an exceptionally coarse, muffled sound of air friction, completely stripped of his proud, silent close-up protection. Plunged into this intense wretchedness, he can catch no prey in the dark, and worse, he slides into fatal hypothermia due to the sudden drain of stamina and the massive energetic expense of keeping warm. Consequently, when seasons of unceasing rain arrive, the barn owl is frequently forced to stay in the blind corners of ruined barns, enduring days and nights of starvation, his eyes flashing with immense dread of an unknown clear sky. This is precisely why every single barn owl's perception of weather is honed to a near-obsessive degree. As elegant as they are beneath a clear night sky, they are equally desolate amidst continuous rain. This acoustic dominance bartered away at the cost of waterproofing rights is a destiny hymn etched into the deepest core of their genes, anchoring their lifelong security to a mere straw that could snap with a single rain dot. If the serrations on his wings are the barn owl's invisible armor for conquering the night sky, then his perfectly heart-shaped facial disc and completely asymmetrical ears are his secret weapons for battling fate in a silent world. In the absolute pitch black of a night devoid of a single ray of light, when his eyes lose all utility for observing the world, the barn owl relies on his auditory spatial mapping system, unmatched in the biological realm. That white porcelain-like heart facial disc is actually not for aesthetics, it is a precise, sound-collecting radar, forged from exceptionally stiff, densely packed feathers. It can precisely refract, focus, and amplify those incredibly faint sound waves generated by grass friction or crawling insects in the barrens, directing them straight into his ear canals hidden deep beneath the plumage. Even more abnormal is that the positions of his left and right ear openings on the skull are entirely asymmetrical, one sits higher, one lower, one angles up, one down. This setup looks close to a deformity to humans, but in fluid acoustics, it stands as a divine design capable of drafting a three-dimensional map. When a sliver of sound wafts from the grass, owing to the difference in location, the time it takes for the sound to reach the owl's left and right ears differs by an incredibly minute delta of a few 10,000ths of a second, accompanied by a subtle intensity variance. The barn owl's brain, not colossal in volume, yet allocating the vast majority of its neurons to the auditory processing system, can capture this minute delta in a split second. He does not need to ponder the vastness of the starry sky or scheme a path for tomorrow, he only needs to translate this tiny time variance into an absolute coordinate precise to the millimeter inside his mind. When he glides silently down from a beam, his talons clamping unerringly upon prey hidden deep within the leaf litter in the pitch dark, he doesn't even need to open his eyes. In this pure devotion of total intellect to sound, the barn owl lives as an auditory island, floating in mid-air, severing all crossings with the chaotic world of daylight, silently keeping vigil over the secrets of the long night in wordless stillness. The thread of a barn owl's destiny spans not only the subtleties of microscopic physics, but also carries that poignant moment hidden at the boundary where ancient agricultural eras clash with modern civilization. Over past centuries, the habitats the barn owl clung to most were the ancient wooden barns and abandoned stone towers widely scattered across European manors and countrysides. The timber beams there were dry, warm, and exhaled a comforting, rustic scent of aged straw and soil, his most flawless reproductive haven and midnight roost. When the summer night breeze of June ripples through the wheat fields, the mother owl, in the deepest recesses of the dim beam, tenderly shields her clutch of porcelain white eggs with her own body. She must endure over 30 days of silent time there, a nest brimming with herbal scents and endless quietude, the safest nesting attachment she gives her posterity. Yet, under the ruthless crush of the era's giant wheel, ancient farming civilization was thoroughly torn asunder and replaced within a few short decades by cold, soaring industrial factories of reinforced concrete. Those wooden barns were bulldozed and torched, morphed into uniform, sealed modern silos sprayed with harsh chemical pesticides, completely severing the ancient contract between the barn owl and the earth. When the owl mother and her young awakened startled in this world choked by the roars of modern machinery, finding that the noise-canceling coat and asymmetrical ears they depend on for life are rendered useless before the endless industrial din, the dread and despair in their hearts hit a zenith. Noise pollution shatters the accuracy of their internal 3D map-making, while environmental shifts strip them of their final warm eaves to evade autumn rains. In the blind spots of those abandoned ruins, people frequently glimpse their solitary figures standing, their pristine, delicate heart facial discs coated in industrial soot, their eyes filled with innocence, confusion, and a quiet sigh for this fast-changing world. Returning once more to the deep blind spots of the desolate manor, the barn owl becomes an invisible sage wrapped in the night again, quietly and coldly watching the shifting winds and clouds of the earth. In the vast night sky, countless creatures fly in a frantic rush driven by desire or shriek out of terror, running blindly in the dark, frantically draining their stamina for mere scraps of survival. Yet, when the barn owl's smoke-light figure sweeps across the tips of the wild grass, the entire space seems to slow down owing to this meditative composure, and time loses its past sharp edge within his feathers. With ultimate silence, he successfully weaves a blind spot net free from worldly disruption amidst the turbulent currents of the night sky. Faced with the plight of survival and the squeeze of the era, he displays no violent rebellion or angry screech, but rather a near sculptural forbearance and absolute yielding to natural laws. Over long ages, he has seen too many powerful beasts perish from a moment of impulse, and too many monarchs exhaust themselves to death in pursuit of speed. He merely stays in his own corner, letting the wind blow and the rain fall, letting time weather the stone walls, silently hoarding every faint ounce of strength to perpetuate his bloodline in the deepest silence. This slowness, this ultimate pursuit of quietude, might seem a trivial exit in the eyes of the clamorous modern secular world, but within the boundless dimension of time, it commands an unrivaled, dignity-filled philosophy of higher life. The barons of the deep night welcome another delicate, lingering breeze. The rustling wind brushes past withered banana leaves and waves of grain, generating a rhythmic, reassuring white noise. Perched upon the ancient beam, the barn owl slightly adjusts the angle of his wings, letting the cool night wind carry away the final trace of daytime chaos and fatigue from his frame. In the prologue, we marveled at his counterintuitive silent flight and his acoustic riddles within the freezing night. Now, all those mysteries have found their best home in the deep recesses of this placid sky. He has left the world no deafening roars, nor glorious records of conquering vast territories. What he leaves behind is simply a tender trace gliding beneath the moonlight without producing a single sound. In his world, time is no longer a monster urging life to sprint forward relentlessly, but a breath of clear wind flowing gently through the microfeathers, completely cancelled of noise. He uses his entire life to prove to us that in this universe packed with anxiety, competition, and noise, remaining quiet and learning to listen is actually an exceptionally decent and dignified way to live. Listening to the rhythmic rise and fall of the night wind rustling outside your window and watching the final, faint, introverted warm glow of the hearth fire in your room, has the tight tension within your nerves finally received the gentlest comfort? There is no need to fret over unfinished tasks with intense anxiety, nor tremble over tomorrow's unknowns. Like that weathered being suspended beneath the starry sky, lay down all your defenses and burdens. Let your tight muscles fully unwind with every rise and fall of your breath. Let your weary mind slowly find its footing and settle into this story you need not effortfully remember. The night is far spent, and the physics story inside the midnight feathers has concluded. May you carry this ultimate tenderness, tranquility, and silent attachment. Gently close your eyes, have a beautiful dream, and good night.